Yeah, you'd be rocking out to Limp Bizkit up in this piece.
Yeah, bitch.
remember our guys from the Thrash Can?
The Thrash Can.
Those guys. They'd be rocking out on the porch.
Yeah.
All up in this piece.
Yeah, all up in this piece. Biatch. And they were so bad.
It was just two white guys from New Jersey trying to be like homies or something.
Yeah, they were wiggering it out big time.
They were really wiggering it out.
Yeah, but it was embarrassing bad.
It says, listen to it.
What was their names? Tito and
Big Mike or Metal Mike
or something. Yeah, Tito and Big Mike.
Yeah, Metal Mike, I think.
Yeah.
Big Metal Mike or something like that.
You know, if I had more time, which I need to find, because we got to just troll some Blog Talk Radio some week and just there's got to be more shows out there now. There's got to be a new crop of awful.
Well,
out
of
there.
course. I mean, we really just capitalized on some of the really bad ones. Like, you know, obviously Kay and Abby was people still talk about Kay and Abby today.
Yeah, that was a fun one. And what was the Metalheads United?
Metalheads United, yeah.
That guy was funny. or the one guy that was what was his deal? That he like didn't have anything to say, but he was doing like a 3-hour show.
Yeah, he wanted to do the history of heavy metal.
No, well, that guy was funny too.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the kid that stepped on a nail on his porch.
No, he was walking around in the backyard because he was doing Blog Talk Radio, which you do over the phone.
Right.
So he's connected to Blog Talk on his cell phone or, you know, his cordless or whatever, and he's walking around in the backyard trying to do a show, and there's jets flying over because he lived out near the St. Louis airport.
Right.
And you could hear the planes going overhead, and he kept repeating himself, and he kept losing his place where what he just covered.
Right.
And then he kept checking the clock. Well, I got 20 more minutes, and trying to figure out what to say in the next 20 minutes.
Right.
Then you hear him go in the sliding glass door into the house, and then he's in the house, and he just didn't know what to do with himself.
Right.
And his show was only an hour.
Yeah, I know.
And he couldn't even fill the hour.
Right. That's a good one too. Gilp Dog just brought up. Remember the guy that kept talking about Chris Barnes?
Yeah, that guy. 6 feet under.
Yeah, that guy was hilarious. Yeah, we found some good ones. That's
well,
you
know, people think they can do a show, and you know, they get in 10 minutes in, and then they're done. They've said everything they're going to say.
Yeah, it is amazing too that, and everybody thinks that you have to plan it out, and you should be able to do an hour without planning anything out. If you can't do an hour just off the cuff, then you really don't need to have a show anyway.
Right.
Because you don't have enough interesting shit to say.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, not that we ever have anything interesting to say, but you know, people seem to listen.
They gravitate for some reason.
Yeah, but I mean, we could talk. Me and you could do a 12-hour show.
Sure.
And the thing that would stop us would be tired.
Right.
Get tired, but, you know, we could knock that down easy.
Unless you're Crispy Bacon.
Crispy Bacon.
Crispy Bacon.
Yeah, that guy was funny, too.
Yeah, most of those shows were all one and dones.
Yeah, they were.
They tried it, and they just could not... just couldn't succeed. It's just like, I have nothing left. I got nothing else to offer.
You're right, though. Now I'm thinking about that guy that did the history.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath was the root.
Yeah, he got as far as like Led Zeppelin. Yeah, and then he couldn't get past that.
Right, then he had to start over. Kept getting confused.
He didn't know where to go from there.
Right.
It's too good. Everybody wants to be a broadcaster.
Hey, have at it. We like that they keep trying.
Sure.
At least the Moose hung around.
That's true.
The real talent rises.
True. That one guy though that what was his name? Big Mike from Brooklyn or whatever the hell, that older guy.
Right.
He didn't like us.
No, he didn't like us at all.
He heard about us and some of the goofs we made, and boy, he didn't like us at all.
Yeah. Oh, well.
How did he find out about us? Did you have somebody that knew him or knew of him or
of him and shared the segment or something? Yeah, he was mad.
Yeah. This is Big Mike from Brooklyn.
Well, they all think that you're gonna just fucking run and hide because they say your name.
Right.
Okay. So it's Big Mike from Brooklyn. So what? What else you got?
Too much. Love the podcasters, man.
I do too.
Especially the ones who just have no direction.
Which is pretty much all of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Even some of the ones that are really popular don't necessarily have much. Like, do you ever listen to Legion of Skanks?
I'm not even familiar with it.
It's three comedians from New York, and they're funny as comedians. I especially like Big J Okerson, who's like the lead guy on it.
Okay.
And I have tried several times to get into their podcast because it's popular as shit. I mean, it's a very popular podcast. So I keep thinking I'm just missing it or something. I'm not paying enough attention to listen to it or whatever. And I can't do it. I don't know what it is with those guys, but it just doesn't work. I like them as comedians. I've seen seen them on TV or on YouTube or whatever. Specials by Okerson and by what's his name, Luis Gomez.
I don't know any of those guys.
Well, you would like Big J especially. You should look him up, Big J Okerson.
Okay.
You would dig his comedy, but his podcast is like, and it was on Kumia's network. And then they branched off to do their own because they felt like they were losing listenership from being on Kumia's thing.
Okay.
And it's probably true because it's a big podcast.
All right.
But just I listen to it and I can't get my head around it.
Sure.
And
it's just not interesting or not funny or what's the matter with it?
It's almost like when really shitty hack morning radio guys they tell the comedians to tell something funny, and the comedians struggle with that because they don't want to come in and do their act. They just want to be natural.
Okay.
But trying to be a little funny. It's kind of like that. And I know that's not an exact thing, but I don't know. It's some of that, and it's a lot of, it's kind of that New York thing that we don't necessarily always dig.
Sure.
So but maybe I could very well be wrong because there's a ton of people that listen to it. So by no means am I shitting on them. They're doing better than we are. So,
right. Sure.
I'm not shitting on them in any way. It just does not translate to me, no matter how much I've tried to listen to it.
All right. Well, it just doesn't resonate with you because maybe they are maybe too New York for you or something.
Yeah, that's probably it. It could very well be it.
Because their audience could be a lot of East Coasters for all you know.
Yeah, it's true.
So I don't know. There's stuff out there that doesn't resonate with me. I've tried to listen to it and get into it, and it's like none of this just makes any sense to me or doesn't even it's not funny.
Yeah. And dude, most popular guy in the world is still Howard Stern, and his show blows now.
Yeah.
Just not good anymore. And and both of us were huge Stern guys back in the day. I know I was.
I was too. I listened to him religiously, but the thing is that he was still at that point to where he had to prove something.
Right, but I mean, you went to like the funeral, right?
No, I didn't go to the Cleveland funeral, but I did go to his book signings.
Right.
So I did meet him at the book signings just briefly, and I've gotten a couple of his books signed and things like that.
Sure,
but when he left the air, FM radio,
right?
I kind of lost track of him because I didn't have XM at the time or Sirius at the time because I had XM.
Right.
And so there was a few years there that I didn't hear him at all. Right. And then when I did hear what he was doing, when people were uploading it to YouTube and things like that, I agree with you that there just was no edginess anymore because, he didn't have to try very hard.
Right. Well, you making $500 million in a 5-year contract. How hard are you going to work?
But when he was on FM radio and he was still expanding to other markets and whatnot, he was still pushing the envelope and doing goofy, silly, crazy stuff.
Right.
But, like with O&A, my allegiance kind of changed over to O&A when I had XM.
Right. Sure.
And they were still pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And did a lot of funny things. And, of course, when Jim Norton joined the mix, that just made it even more powerful, especially the dynamic between
Jimmy and Anthony.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. Dude, we get, and I'm certainly not saying that we are in the same league, but that's where we get our most comparisons to O&A.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll take that any day of the week. That to me is like badge of honor.
Sure.
And I know a lot of people hate O&A, but I love it. I absolutely. What we do is what I hope. What I always hope is that we get exactly that compliment. Because that was the show when and this is even back before they went to XM, but I loved them on XM. But when they were doing right before they got fired, right before Sex for Sam,
yeah,
that was when I was like, "This is what I want to do with my radio career."
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to do.
Sure,
and I was on a station that carried O&A, so I heard it and I knew I could get away with a little more because O&A were doing it on the station, and that was what I wanted to do. And then when they went to XM, and I heard, with no filter, it was like, fuck, that's what we got to do.
Right. Well, that whole time, for the first couple of years that they were on XM and they had to do that transition from the FM to go to XM,
yeah,
where they were broadcasting on both XM and FM, and then they had to switch studios and they had to walk to go to another studio. That was the most bizarre thing.
It was crazy, but you got to give them credit. That was daring.
It was. I agree. But that was just so bizarre that they would have to leave one studio and go to another.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I honestly think, though, that's what ruined the show. Personally, was the FM, going back to FM, because it was never as good as it was when it was just on XM.
Sure.
It never got back to that level again.
Right.
They like dumbed it down and they got softer, and
they had to play the game. That's that was the whole thing, is that they had to make the adjustment in order to appease the rules of FM radio.
Right. But what I'm saying is, after they got fired that second time from XM, from CBS,
right,
they never recovered from that.
Well, that they were off for how long? Almost 2 years?
No, not that time. After.
Oh, after that.
When they were doing the walk thing.
Oh, right.
And then they got fired from the FM portion.
Sure.
And to me, the show was never that good after that.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3-4 years or whatever it was after that, it was just not very good. To me, it just was not very good after. They had moments, but every show on... Dude, when they first started on XM, I literally would not work very hard because I would stay in my car literally until the minute I had to go in.
Right.
And not be late for work.
Sure.
And then I literally, and you remember this, dude, I had like 7 XM radios.
Yeah.
Because I had one for every place that I was. And I used to listen more than doing my job at work.
Sure.
Because I was listening to, and literally that was in the early days of XM, where I had where my office was. This is when I was working at the phone company. I was in a computer room, and I literally, one day after work, I climbed up in the rafters, and I had to run one of them stupid antennas.
Yeah, you had to put your XM antenna up there.
Yeah, but I had to run it through the rafters some 60 or so odd feet. to get it near a window so that I could listen to XM at my desk.
Right.
But I was willing to do that because I loved O&A.
Sure.
And that was, and even on the drive home, I would listen to the rerun, even if I'd already listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. Just, why does it seem like when there's a good show or chemistry or combination of something, it always gets ruined?
Oh, because they try to, what happens, and I'm a victim of this from our days. The sponsors, they get their fucking nose involved into it,
mm-hmm.
and they think that they can incorporate whatever it is that or the sales guys rather, think that, well, you can do what you want to do, but just incorporate this into what you're doing.
Right.
And they don't think that changes anything. We had it for us, and I'm sure you remember this, but I'll tell the story. One of the biggest problems I ever had when I was on commercial radio was that I would shit on the sponsors. When I had the magazine and the radio show, I had a very bad time with one of the clubs, the owners of Peabody's Down Under at the time. And I did not get along with these guys at all. So when they would announce a show, they would pay to be on our show because our show was really popular. And so we would have to do reads about them on our show.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever they would do that, my purposeful move was I always said, well, I wouldn't go to that show. I'll be at, and I would have a listing for some other show. So Matt would just be like doing what he's supposed to do. He's like, hey, don't forget, Lamb of God's going to be at Peabody's Down Under this weekend. And I would always be like, well, yeah, but I'm not going to be there. I'll be over at the Revolution seeing whatever band.
Right.
I was giving Billy's Club free plugs.
So you would blow up their spot by promoting somebody else.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were furious about this.
I'm sure.
Because I would do it every single time.
Right.
Because I hated these guys.
Sure.
And I mean, I was... I wanted to, and I would have been fired if I would have done it, but I really wanted to tell them, don't advertise on our show. And that was that. And, and we literally at one point, one of the bands that I always had a problem with, as you remember, was Mushroom Head.
Right, exactly.
And when Mushroom Head got signed to Universal, every specialty radio show, specialty metal show in the country did what's called a radio ad, which is important for sales numbers and whatnot.
Sure.
Every single one of them promoted or added their single, except the one in Cleveland, us, because I refused to do it.
Right.
I refused to play Mushroom Head on our show, and we didn't play them. We ended up making Mitch, my old business partner. I made a deal with Mitch to play some Mushroom Head once, and we did once, and then they completely fucked us over again, and then it was like, okay, fuck these guys, But yeah, we that was a whole nother issue. Was whenever Mushroom Head was playing gigs, they would want to advertise on the metal show. And I absolutely told Kim Monroe, our boss, I was like, no fucking way. I was like, there's no way will I do that read. Mm-hmm. I just won't do it. So they never advertised on our show. Kim always had to turn down that advertising, which was not fun. Because believe you me, when she would call, she would tell me, we're fucking turning down blah, 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 $3,000 of advertising because you're being an asshole. Okay. Well, too bad.
And you just said, I'm not promoting a band that's named after the tip of your cock.
You know what I told her, quite honestly? I said, I have a problem with them, and if I have to do the read, I will remind people of the problem I have with them. Period. And I had, in our contract, we had creative control over the show.
Sure.
So that was what I was going to do if they ever made me. And the worst part is that I'm a fan of the music. I like Mushroom Head's music, but as guys, they're dicks.
Mm-hmm.
Just flat out dicks. But anyway,
are they still around?
They're still around. Yeah, they're still touring. They're still. I don't know how relevant they are anymore, but they're still doing their thing as far as I know.
I thought they were just like a direct ripoff of Slipknot.
Well, they were around before Slipknot. You know, that's always been the misconception, was that they ripped Slipknot off, but they were actually around first.
Mm-hmm. I
actually saw them. The first time I ever saw Mushroom Head, you're going to laugh at this. They opened for Down in 1995 at the Agora, or Odeon, at the Odeon.
Okay.
And their gimmick, that was before they had the money to do like the more elaborate staging that they do.
Sure.
But what they did was they put up a net with had to be 10,000 doll heads, like the heads off of Barbie dolls.
Okay.
And at the end of their set, they dropped this net and all these fucking Barbie doll heads fell on everybody. It was the dumbest thing. I still don't know what it meant or anything.
Okay.
They dropped these fucking doll heads on everybody.
All right.
Fun show, though.
Okay.
The guys from Down didn't seem to care for them much. But,
sure.
You know, somehow Philip and Selma was not big on that fucking mask rock or whatever.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah, they're still around. I know one of our listeners, Wayne, in Texas, his band opened for them last week.
Oh, okay.
So I do know, that's the only way I know, is because that my friend Wayne, or our listener Wayne, is a fan of us, and he was promoting his band opening for Mushroom Head.
All right. Another band I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fan of them as guys, but musically I can listen to them.
Fair enough.